Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new edition of the Daily Debate. In tonight's show, we're going to be focusing on the Egyptian-Algerian file. This is in light of President Abdul Sisi holding summit talks today with the Algerian President Abdul Tebboune, who arrived actually yesterday. The President received him at the Cairo International Airport yesterday, but today they held the summit talks. We're going to be talking about the main topics on the agenda of the talks and the prospects of enhancing and strengthening the bilateral relations between both countries. But before we start doing that, let's check out some of the stories making the news today. And we'll start off with President Abdul Sisi, who congratulated the Egyptians on Tuesday on the occasion marking January 25th Revolution and Police Day, calling on them to follow their inspiration for a better future for Egypt. In a tweet on his official social media account, President Sisi reiterated that the 25th of January would remain engraved in the memories of Egyptians. The president further affirmed that the date would also remain a reminder of the heroism of policemen who in 1952 gave the best examples of sacrifice for the nation amid hardships. The head of state noted that for the past years, this spirit had inspired policemen who sacrificed their souls to rein in on terrorism. He confirmed that policemen had shed their blood for the sake of development and realizing an honorable life for the people, as demanded by the January 25th revolution. Also, First Lady Sisi congratulated the Egyptian today on the National Police Day and the January 25th revolution. Now, the First Lady wrote on her official social media account that as Egyptians celebrate this immortal day in the nation's memory, she salutes all mothers of the heroic martyrs who willingly offered their heroic sons for the sake of Egypt and its people. She stressed that without their sacrifices, we should not have reached safety and started on the path of construction, development, and our new republic.
دايما جاهزين
دايما جاهزين
جاهزين
جاهزين احنا دايما جاهزين
دايما جاهزين
دايما جاهزين
دايما جاهزين
دايما جاهزين
دايما جاهزين في عهد ما بينا يا بلدي وكلنا متفقين من أول يوم والآخر يوم واليوم الدين دايما جاهزين دايما جاهزين اطمني دايما أولادك يا بلدنا جداد وعيوننا بتسهر على راحتك وعلى استعداد دايما جاهزين ويا مصر اطمن وانت بتمشي في كل مكان.
And as I've mentioned before, President Abdul Sisi received his Algerian counterpart, Abdul Tebboune, at the Hany Palace in Cairo today. The two leaders discussed means of boosting bilateral relations in various domains, in addition to a number of regional and international issues of mutual concern. They probed the upheaval in neighboring Libya, which failed to hold its first presidential election last month, and the latest developments on the Ethiopian dam dispute. At a joint press conference following their talks, President Sisi said Egypt and Algeria share historical brotherly ties and a common destiny. The head of state described talks with President Tebboune as constructive and reflect a joint political will to expand ties. President Sisi said they had both agreed on coordinating over fighting terrorism and facing all extremist organizations. According to President Sisi, the two sides also agreed on expanding cooperation in the trade and economic fields, holding a joint committee and reviewing the political cooperation mechanism. President Sisi said the talks had touched on the Ethiopian dam, with both sides stressing on the significance of preserving Egypt's water rights. The head of state noted that their talks had witnessed an agreement on the necessity to preserve Libya's stability. These were a few of the stories making the news today, but now turning our attention to tonight's topic in hand. Let's check out this report regarding President Sisi holding the summit talks with his Algerian counterpart Abdul Tebboune today at the Ittihadiyya Palace, and we'll be right back.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held summit talks with his Algerian counterpart Abdul Tebboune, who embarked on a two-day official visit to Egypt. The talks focused on means of enhancing bilateral ties in various domains, in addition to a number of regional issues of mutual concern, notably the situation in Libya and Tunisia, as well as the Palestinian cause. Also, preparations for the next Arab summit and the promotion of the joint Arab action were discussed. Both President Sisi and President Tebboune lauded the prominent levels of brotherly relations between the two nations. They expressed keenness to enhance bilateral ties in all fields. Tebboune underlined Algeria's pride in its close and distinguished relations with Egypt at the official and popular levels. The two leaders agreed to push forward security and stability in Libya and affirmed the necessity to preserve its unity and sovereignty and unify its national institutions, especially the military and security ones. The meeting also touched upon the situation in Tunisia, where they expressed support to the Tunisian president's measures to achieve stability in the country. The visit by the Algerian president, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces and Minister of National Defense to Egypt, constitutes an opportunity to strengthen the cooperation between the two sides in different sectors, especially as the leaders of the two countries are working to raise economic cooperation to the level of the political and historical relations between the two countries. The visit will enable the two sides to boost investments between the two countries by giving a strong impetus to trade exchanges that have increased in the past few years, exceeding $747 million in 2020. Last week, President Sisi received the Algerian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ramtan Namamra, in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Samah Shoukry. The President lauded the prominent levels of brotherly relations between the two countries. He also confirmed Egypt's keenness on further advancing frameworks of cooperation at various levels by activating joint bilateral committees to promote relations towards broader prospects. On the Ethiopian dam, President Sisi reiterated his firm stance over Egypt's historical rights to the Nile waters and the country's position on maintaining its water security. The Algerian top diplomat agreed with President Sisi to continue extending their support.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're joined here tonight in the studio to shed more light on this issue by Mr. Hany Aziz, the former UN Assistant Secretary General. Mr. Aziz, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I appreciate very much working with you personally.
It's always a pleasure,
and I hope to satisfy myself first and my conscience and the needs of enhancing the Egyptian-Algerian relationship.
Well, you always do, so it won't be a surprise tonight either. Mr. Abdulaziz, first off, if we're going to focus on the Egyptian-Algerian file. Now, this is the first official visit by the Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to Egypt since he assumed office in late 2019. Now, why did it take that long for him to make the first official visit, and what is the significance of holding such a visit right now?
Let me first start by saying my presence here is to express my personal opinion, and it is not related and do not reflect any national, regional or international position. My opinion, as you know, is straightforward, frank sometimes. And my answer to your question is even worse, that this is not the first visit of President Tebboune to Egypt. This is the first visit of an Algerian president for, I believe, 25 years. And my understanding and my hope is that this visit will break a period, I would not say of lukewarm or just good relationship, but those relationships were not until today up to the level of expectation of the population of the two countries and the long history of exchanges between Egypt and Algeria. And I remember very well, because I was your age at that time, the positions taken by late President Boumediene in support of Egypt in certain very difficult circumstances, which was, I would say, the other side of a coin of bilateral cooperation, brotherhood, friendship in a very sincere manner. However, the situation in the North African region is a very delicate situation. And I would like to stress essentially what can be, hopefully, the best way of cooperating with Algeria is to fight the terrorism in what became a sanctuary of terrorism in the Sahel region, going from Nigeria to Niger, to Mali, to Morocco, to Algeria, to Tunisia, to Libya, and its impact on the stability of the region and the impact it has on the stability of Egypt too. Therefore, there is a common interest. But I believe that we can, through this Algerian-Egyptian cooperation, in a participative approach with the other interested country, and they are all interested in stability of the region, but have to overcome certain problems they have domestically and regionally to cooperate much more in terms of exchange of information, combat terrorism through different means, joining efforts, material effort, financial effort to follow up those type of situation and prevent external power from intervening. Because through the situation in Libya, which is in direct relation with Egypt's strategic interests and relationship, one might believe that there is eventually some foreign intervention in the Sahel region. You understand what I mean. I don't want to mention a particular Mediterranean country, but that's something. We have to join effort on this. And it is very possible, and it has to be technical essentially, not to enter into the little nitty-gritty problem I mentioned between few countries, and we know what is the deterioration which happened recently between Algeria and Morocco. Yes. I don't think Egypt would like to lose Morocco in such situation, but cannot also lose the cooperation with Algeria. And it's a very delicate balance. I think the Egyptian diplomacy is very aware of it and will take it into consideration. I followed the statement of the two heads of state, which I welcome every word said by President Sisi and by President Tebboune. It has been very finely worded, not to hurt anybody, and to show a balanced approach of both parties. But here I'm talking about,
yes.
About Egypt, the balanced approach to the regional problem. We all know about it in North Africa. Therefore, the security, safety in the Sahel region is essential.
Yes.
The second aspect, I believe, where cooperation should happen, and I think will start to happen now, is the situation in Libya. Libya is very important to Egypt. It's also very important to Algeria. And until now, I believe that there have been not enough coordination of efforts in the same direction. And apparently, this will happen after this meeting.
Yes. Sir, now, let's take it one step at a time. Now, first off, this visit by President Tebboune is following the visit of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Al-Amamra, last week here to Egypt. Now, it seems that this visit or the relations between both countries are picking up momentum, and you're saying that this is really after maybe 25 years of sort of stagnant or frozen sort of relationship between both countries. Now, what spurred this kickstart of the renewal and the refreshment of the bilateral relations between both countries? Because the regional issues within North Africa have been going on for quite a few years, and Egypt has been doing its own bit, trying to deal with the different crises within the region. Now, what kick-started or what spurred this renewal of relations?
Definitely that there is a new era in Algeria. President Tebboune, I would not say have dissociated himself, not at all, from the past, but his predecessor never visited Egypt. Whatever the heavyweight he had worldwide, in Latin America and in Africa in particular, there has been also some competition, you know, in Africa, not only by Algeria, by Morocco, by other countries, and I'm extremely happy that for the first time Algeria and other countries in North Africa, and maybe other countries in the Arab world, in Asia, have supported the position of Egypt concerning the Renaissance Dam as an Egyptian. This lack of clarity position by any brotherly country is hurting me, and I think it's hurting the Egyptian population. Not to stand by the position of Egypt, which is a fair, extreme, and a fundamental survival element to Egypt, was not really openly and sincerely supported by many countries. And I'm glad that this has been overcome during this meeting, most probably. I don't know details, but it's clear that it is mentioned in both heads of state statements. And I hope it will be confirmed during the March Arab Summit in Algiers. This is an extremely important thing, and I think we will overcome it very soon by common position and active action on the African continent. It's not a secret that Algeria has tremendous, very solid relation with South Africa and with Nigeria, which both countries have not supported at all Egypt in. I expect Algeria to exercise efforts with South Africa and Nigeria and other African countries where it has a lot of listening ears to have a more moderate and more understanding of the Egyptian survival position on this critical subject.
Okay, well, we'll talk about the Ethiopian dam dispute a bit later, but I want to start off with Libya. Now, Libya has been on top of the agenda of the talks between the Egyptian and Algerian president, but now that Algeria is joining forces or going in hand with Egypt regarding the Libyan situation, what does it offer in terms of dealing with the Libyan situation? I mean, Libya is a neighbor to both countries. Now, what sort of influence can it have, Algeria, on the Libyan situation for Egypt and maybe regarding other international players that come into the whole equation?
Yes, it's a very pertinent question, and very sincerely. Algeria has a long history of combating terrorism in the south of Algeria, where you have the common border between Libya and Algeria, and some also little common border with Tunisia. Therefore, I expect Algeria to have good access to different groups in the region, to be able to influence them, or at least to contribute with information on the situation there, and eventually, you know, take active participation in combating those groups operating in the Sahel region on the borders with Algeria, Libya, and Egypt. I think that there was not enough coordination of mutual understanding between Egypt, Algeria, and Morocco, because Morocco has intervened also in the Libya situation by hosting a conference there, which is welcoming in any case if it leads, you know, to normalization of our borders with, and it's a very long border, and it's above 1,200 kilometers, etc. Now that we have resumed discussion with Algeria, that the discussion with Morocco also have to continue or to be resumed. Very interestingly, hopefully in Tunisia has expressed its opinion very clearly during the visit of its president to Egypt a few months ago. It was very clear. And I hope that we all join, you know, in a common position to return to stability of Libya, in a united Libya, and to exercise the same effort together towards this end, which is stabilization, the borders with Algeria and Libya, and with Libya and Egypt, and with Chad. The acting president of Chad was here a few weeks ago, and we cannot ignore that all of this is part of, I would say, an Egyptian and Algerian and North African, I hope a North African attitude towards the Libya situation, which cannot be totally dissociated from the Sahel situation.
Well, do you think that, as you're mentioning, the communications between Algeria and different factions in Libya would actually pave the way or be the final push for the Libyan factions and Libya in general to actually hold presidential elections that were slated for 24th of December, but now delayed? Do you think that this sort of an extra sort of effort of communication will be the difference?
It will help. I don't have a crystal ball, and nobody has. You know, Libya is divided on many tribal political tendencies and many external influence, being from Wagner Group to Turkey, etc. Therefore, and support, and there have been treaties between, you know, Libya and Turkey, and therefore we can have this united position, hopeful united position. I say hopeful because I like to see things on the ground. You know, I can discuss, make all communiques I want, but I will judge on the real deeds, you know, on the ground, and I would say on the immediate future. But Western powers have tremendous influence also. Britain, also not so visible, but has a tremendous influence on the situation in Libya. France too, Italy too, all European Union in a way or another, and they are not totally in agreement among themselves. The USA also has an agreement, but it's so far, and USA does not depend on the oil from Libya, but it has a huge influence and can help coordinate the Europe. Therefore, it's a multitude of effort. I hope the election will be held as postponed. I hope, otherwise it will not be good for the Libyan population and the Libyan and Libya as a country.
Yes, Mr. Abdul Aziz, you've mentioned Tunisia, and President Sisi and Al-Amra actually agreed upon supporting the Tunisian President Kais Saied with all the measures that he's taking to sort of help his own country and help the reform measures taking place there. How influential do you feel Algeria and the joint Egyptian-Algerian efforts in order to back the Tunisian President Kais Saied with his reform measures, taking care of the domestic affairs of Tunisia?
Don't forget that Algeria and Egypt are absolutely medium to heavy weights in politics in the region. Heavyweights on a regional basis, and medium weight, not small weight, not very heavy, of course, internationally too. And by supporting President Kais Saied, we have supported moderation, attitude. We have tried our best, and I think it has been successful to Tunisia. And if Algeria join this, and it has joined, it will be an excellent move to not really to combat, but to contain the external involvement of other countries not belonging to North Africa into Libya. That will be very important. And I think that the Egyptian call for withdrawal of all troops and mercenaries and foreign troops and under any cover one can imagine is an absolutely fair and another vital element of Egyptian stability and security.
Ladies and gentlemen, now talking about the Egyptian-Algerian relations, they do share strong bilateral ties, and we've heard in the press conference between both heads of state that they consider themselves brotherly countries and fraternal relations between Egypt and Algeria. Let's check out this report and we'll be right back.
Egypt and Algeria enjoy strong relations in various domains, and the two sides are looking forward to broadening their ties in the coming stage. Algeria intends to strengthen the bilateral commercial relations and economic cooperation with Egypt through the Joint High Committee between the two countries, which will hold its meeting soon. The two countries' relations foresee cultural, economic and military cooperation. Moreover, regular meetings at the Arab League and AU took place between two countries' foreign ministers who are actively promoting closer cooperation between Algeria and Egypt. These provide an opportunity for both countries to become better acquainted. Algerian-Egyptian cooperation is seen as a lab of good initiatives for AU members. However, this cooperation is yet to achieve any milestone mark, notably as it will be played in the region's conflicts. Both countries should have positioned themselves earlier. Minister of International Cooperation Rania Mashat met with the Algerian ambassador in Cairo, Hamid Shibera, ahead of the Joint Higher Committee meeting between the two countries. The talks addressed developments of cooperation in various fields and preparations for the Joint Higher Committee. Mashat expressed Egypt's aspirations to advance bilateral relations in various fields. She stressed keenness of both political leaderships to overcome any obstacles that might prevent economic integration. The minister stressed the importance of reactivating the role of the Joint Higher Committee as its last session was held in 2014. For his part, Algerian ambassador expressed his country's desire to broaden relations with Egypt in various areas. He stressed both leaders aim to push forward relations which will be reflected in the development efforts, indicating that Algeria also wants to resume the meetings of the Joint Higher Committee.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, continuing our discussion with Mr. Hany Abdulaziz. Mr. Abdulaziz, now, one of the topics you've mentioned, and it's high on the agenda, the Ethiopian dam dispute. Now, it's a dispute that's been going on for almost a decade now. And we've tried everything, tried all sort of consultations with different consultancy firms, different countries, the World Bank, the US administration, all of it. Now you're saying that Algeria can actually exercise its own influence on swaying the support of countries such as South Africa and Nigeria to back the Egyptian stance in preserving its own rights for the Nile water. Now, how can Algeria use, or what sort of weight does it have in order to sway the opinion and the stance of a country such as South Africa and Nigeria, taking it from one side to the other?
Let's recognize that the Algerian diplomacy during the 30, 40 years have progressed tremendously. And from particular observation and context. And I have met Minister Amamra, and he's a very refined diplomat and has tremendous relationship worldwide, tremendous. In Latin America, in many non-governmental organizations in North Europe, in Scandinavian countries. He's well respected, and he's a respectful man from a direct experience. Helps a lot South Africa in understanding in many situations. I mean, the Algerian diplomacy has a very good influence on political, diplomatic positions taken by South Africa and many other countries. But we have to recognize South Africa is also a heavyweight of the continent, if not the heavyweight. It's the 8th or 9th most industrialized country in the world. But it's a bit like Germany and France. You see, Germany has industry, has everything, and France has the political, impact and influence much higher. And I think Algeria has political, diplomatic influence, and South Africa is more on the industrialization, on all of those things. They coordinate. It's not saying one is superior to other. No. That's what I mean at all. Is that they coordinate very, very well. To be honest, Algerian diplomacy benefited a lot from the withdrawal of Egypt from African affairs during one of our late president's period of time, and has occupied the thing. I saw it in the African Union. The number of Algerian functionaries, yes, but they have an influence within the building. It's much more. Now situation is changing gradually, because it's not going to change in one day. But by coordinating efforts, we can reach the more or less same objectives. And that's what I'm calling for. I'm not calling for withdrawal of Algeria. There will not be, of course. But if we cooperate on common objective, understanding each other fundamental interests, which the dam is, as I say, not only crucial, it's a survival issue, we can obtain joint results benefiting the two countries. But there might be a price tag on it, and I don't want to mention it.
Okay. Well, talking about an interest now, the Nile waters, the Ethiopian dam, it's an existential issue for Egypt. The Libyan situation that both presidents have mentioned is a common interest for both countries. But what would be an Algerian interest in actually getting this relationship between Egypt and Algeria back on track, sharing the diplomacy, sharing the political strategies and direction for both countries? What does Algeria get out of it?
You're talking about the price tag. I would not answer you. You know it well.
Okay, moving on. Now, if we're talking about strengthening political relations, the other side or the other face of that coin is an economic one. Now, what sort of, because it needs to be also translated economically for both countries in terms of investments, in terms of trade relations. How can Egypt benefit from an economic and trade cooperation between Egypt and Algeria?
Okay, I would not say it's a myth. It's not a myth. Algeria is economically a very strong country due to the oil and the gas. However, one should ask how those tremendous resources were spent during, 2-3 past decades. Therefore, the situation economically, I think in Egypt now, we are overcoming things much faster than many other countries, not only in the Middle East, maybe even compared to some European and North Mediterranean, South Mediterranean countries. And it's not to praise, really, no. It is facts on the ground, and I like speaking facts on the ground. And facts on the ground show that the pace of renewal of development in Egypt is at a faster pace than many others.
Yes.
Therefore, we have to be away from the myth that Algeria will provide direct investment in huge manner to Egypt.
Yes.
It may happen, and there has been projects. Algeria has signed 2 weeks ago a tremendous economic agreement between major companies with Turkey. Yes, with Turkey, not with Egypt. I hope it happens too. But we have also in Egypt the possibilities, and we have. One of the factories, I think, of mobile phones in Algeria was held by some Egyptian group, by an Egyptian group, which has been sold, as I think, a few years ago to Russia. Therefore, there is potential, because there is potential in transportation of goods, in export. But what to export? Our industries are similar. And Algeria recently is putting heavy weight in, for example, automotive industry, where they are going to build very soon very heavy trucks and etc., which is needed in Algeria, etc. We might import from them those heavy trucks, and we might sell something else. I really don't know exactly what.
Well, also Algeria signed a declaration of principles in Khartoum in 2015. Signing this declaration of principles, what does it dictate? I mean, that was in 2015, that's about 6-7 years ago. How is it affecting the strategy or the political and economic direction of Algeria regarding the countries who signed the declaration?
First of all, it has been a long time. System in Sudan has tremendously shifted, probably 180 degrees now. It's not absolutely stabilized yet, but probably it's going to be soon, maybe in a year or two, or maybe less. But in general, a declaration of principle is just a declaration of principle. It's nothing more. It's not a treaty. It's not a binding instrument to any part. And as we can say, I mean, to dance tango, we have to be two.
Yes.
Therefore, one has totally changed. Algeria have relatively changed since election of President Tebboune, and probably his team, is progressing in I imagine, a very good direction. Therefore, I would not give too much weight to this, and let's see the coming year or two in Sudan how it's going to develop, and I hope positively, and I believe positively too.
Yes. Mr. Abdul Aziz, now you've mentioned that Algeria enjoys good relations with a lot of the international community, a lot of the European countries as well, namely France and such.
No, relation with France, excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah, sure.
Relation with France actually are tense.
Nowadays?
Yes, yes.
Well, having some sort of a unity in direction between Egypt and Algeria, what does it show for the North African region in terms of the international community, countries that have other interests in North Africa, be it in Syria or Libya or other countries?
I did not enter in this subject, but you are touching the essence of what can happen in the region if we want really the region to develop in the continent and be more powerful, is to revive the dream of having the Maghreb Union as a step forward between the whole countries. But for this, Morocco and Algeria have to resolve their problem, which have increased recently during the last few months. It is essential. There are apprehension for reasons totally unknown. There have been tentative mediation. President Mubarak went maybe 5, 6, 10 times trying to mediate ex-President Mubarak, and it did not happen. James Baker, ex-Secretary of State of the US, also have tried himself and involved himself tremendously. No result. Late Kofi Annan, ex-Secretary General of the United Nations, have tried personally, and I know details of this because I worked with him at a certain time closely. Not really closely, but I worked with him well. No, that is something which nobody can really fully understand. And if in the region we understand, I repeat, our fundamental interest and put our divergences aside and look to the real interest, the Maghreb Union can be a marvelous tool for development of all the countries, for more unity, for stability in Libya, for stability of all the countries without exception, accepting the differences we might have with this country between Egypt and Libya, between Egypt to Sudan, between Morocco and Egypt, etc. There is always divergences. There is nothing wrong having divergences. There is nothing wrong being different on certain subjects. But if we look to what we gain from having peaceful, cooperative relationship, is much, much better. And the union of Maghreb would be an excellent tool. It's reachable if everybody is treated equally, without attempt of hegemony from a part to another or rejecting the role of one to the other. There is situation where this country have more advantage here, but the other country have other advantage on another thing. The principle of dividing the pear in two is not the right approach. Okay, the pear can be more important to me, and the apple can be more important to you. Let you have the apple, let me have my pear, and we will function this way. It is feasible. It is feasible. Why it is not? It's absolutely obscure to me. I lived there few years, involved in the situation, and I'm telling you, nobody understands why people are not looking to the fundamental interests of each other.
Well, if we're talking about strengthening relations between Egypt and Algeria after a long hiatus, do you feel that the same could happen with Algeria and Morocco as well? I mean, if we're looking at the North African region and all the countries occupying this region, talking about Egypt, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, and also what's happening in Syria and Libya. I mean, development, security, stability, sovereignty has to be on top of the agenda for all these nations. Do you feel that these unexplained bridges could be crossed between Algeria and Morocco?
I would say they should be crossed. They should be crossed. And they can be crossed because there is no real animosity. There is no real conflict on territorial aspects. There have been little things like this, but it exists between Egypt and Sudan, and it led nobody to war. These two countries went to a war at a certain time. Okay? And every time there is this brickman strategy or policy of each other. Brickmanship, huh?
Yes.
You're better.
I understand, yeah.
That's what I meant. Therefore, the real reason is probably apprehensions and fears of both sides. One side has more history, the other has less history, but has more power, and etc. But all these are things numerical. They can be changed. Not necessarily changed. They can be accepted the way it is, like in a couple. Accept me like I am, okay, and I accept you like you are. Then move forward. Okay, I can do this, you can do this. But the border between the countries is closed. Why? It must be justified in the mind of this side or the other. And I assure, I don't know who is closing the border. I don't want to know, because it's beyond my capacity to understand.
Yes. Well, ladies and gentlemen, open borders are there between Egypt and Algeria. Definitely, as Mr. Hany Abdulaziz has mentioned, this restart and refreshment of the bilateral relations between both countries, highlighted by today through the press conference of both President Sisi and President Abdelmajid Tebboune. Now, it's definitely something to be hopeful for, hopefully, for the prosperous future of both countries and the North African region as a whole. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this edition of the Daily Debate. But before we go, I'd like to thank my very distinguished guest, Mr. Hany Abdulaziz, the former UN Assistant Secretary General. Mr. Abdulaziz, always a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you to you and to your team, and excuse my frankness and my straightforwardness, but I have to be this with it.
And that's the way I prefer it. Ladies and gentlemen, please stay tuned for more coming up on our International. I'm Hany Saif. Thank you for joining us.
Shukran. It's okay.